Monica,
You too.
if you had to define the moment in 2026 for Ripple and XRP in a few words, how would you describe it?
I would say institutional adoption at scale.
Institutional adoption at scale. Okay.
Yes.
I love it.
That's my, we'll revisit that December 31st to see how it played out.
Yeah, 100%. Amazing. Well, thank you, Monica, for taking.
Hello and welcome to Wolfpack Media. I'm your co-host, Benaiah Husemann, and today I'm starting a whole entire new series called The Crypto Wolf Show. I will be providing any news or update regarding the cryptocurrency market. So let's get right into it, guys. We'll see here, the total crypto market cap is sitting at about $2.38 trillion. We got Bitcoin sitting at around $69,566, Ethereum at $2,064, and XRP is at $1.41. So we have seen some green today, which we've just been trading in a range for the last few weeks here, between 130 all the way up to, I think we made it to around $1.50 on XRP. The market is still in extreme fear. We have the war going on with Iran, so there's a lot of uncertainty and doubt going on. This is the daily chart of XRP. We did make somewhat of a pump this morning up to $1.41, but if we look in the longer time frame, go to a week, we've really just been sitting, hovering in this range, like I said, between $1.30. I think we got down to $1.27, and we pumped up to about $1.50 at the highest. But really, we're just trading within a range. If you look at the month chart, trading within that same exact range. I just want to show you something, guys. So when you look at the Fear and Greed Index, you can see a correlation with the Bitcoin price. And look at how low we are here on the Fear and Greed Index, down at 15, right? And it's correlating down with Bitcoin going down. But if we go back here to January of 2025, and then between January and April, you can see that we were at a very low point. The Fear and Greed Index got down to 15 here. And then if you look, it did correlate with Bitcoin falling down to 82,000 here, and then it fell back down to 82,000 here. But there is one caveat I want to say, guys. Whenever you get a bottom like this, there always has been a rebound. We don't stay in this amount of fear forever, is what I'm saying. Now, look at how long we've stayed in this level of fear, and you can see how much it correlates with the Bitcoin price chart, throughout time. Markets find bottom, so we are going to find a bottom and we're going to rebound. The question is, when is the bottom going to happen, right? It always correlates, right? So we can't stay in extreme fear forever. Now, that's not to say we're not going to go down further, but it is to say eventually we will find a bottom, and it's not all doom and gloom, and we're not going to zero, and we will rebound eventually. And this is why the crypto market is an extremely, extremely high risk, but it's only high risk if you're over leveraged and you don't have the patience or the convictions to wait out these bottoms. Because for every bottom we've seen, we've also seen a nice run. So let's see here. When we made it down to the lowest point, we got 19 here, 4/7 of 2025. And then what happened? We rebounded all the way up to the peak here, around 67 on the fear, or 76 on the Fear and Greed Index. And if you look at Bitcoin, that's when Bitcoin made its run up to around $110,000. Okay, so my point is that this is not going to last forever. I'm not going to tell you that this is the bottom, but we've been in this super low range of extreme fear for quite a while now, and it will not last forever. That is what my point is. I will say, for those who got into the crypto market within the last year, it's been rough, especially if you got into XRP above $3 or above $2.50. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people sold at a loss. Me personally, I didn't sell. I didn't sell at a loss. You could say that I should have taken profits when we did go on a run, but that's kind of the lesson you have to learn in this. You have to be able to look at the fear and greed index. You have to look at the RSI, see if you're overbought or you're oversold. And this is something it takes time to understand the crypto market better. And it's not for everybody. Not everybody can handle this volatility. Not everybody can stomach, 50, 60, 70% drawdowns in the bear market. And I believe we've been in a bear market actually for about the past year. Even though we did see an all-time high in Bitcoin, I believe we were in a bear market this entire time. That is my opinion. And we're still in that bear market. But markets find bottoms, and eventually we're going to come out of that. And you know what happens in a true bull run? You get 200, 300, 400% runs. So if you can make it through these 50, 60, 70% drawdowns, you will be greatly rewarded. Now, this is not financial advice, but if you look at history, it often rhymes in crypto, and bottoms and markets always find bottoms. There are bear markets, and then there are bull runs. Okay? Now, let's see what Brad Garlinghouse said at XRP Australia. I think this was about a week or two ago.
One switch. There's 100 switches. There's 1,000 switches. And it's all of these little switches. 100%. And bit by bit by bit until it really does, I think, have an exponential impact. And I think you're starting to see that. It's taken a little longer in some cases. On the other hand, we've made so much progress. And you're seeing more and more of these little switches flip. And it's the reason why I have so much optimism about both 2026 and certainly beyond. And look, part of that truly is you all are one of those flip switches. Like seeing the passion in Australia, seeing the passion, we're on a kind of a world tour right now. And it's awesome. And each of these individual things and the advocacy and clarifying and debunking the FUD and the misinformation, it's all part of the number of switches that are being flipped. And I think at some point you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, the switch did get flipped. But it wasn't one. It was the culmination of a decade of those events.
Okay, so what Brad Garlinghouse is talking about here is in the XRP community, they often refer to this thing called flipping the switch, a game-changing moment where a switch is flipped and XRP just takes off and goes to the moon. And rather, Brad Garlinghouse is saying, well, this isn't just one switch that they're flipping. There's so many switches that are involved that they're trying to flip, and it's culminating into that moment. And to kind of get an idea what he's talking about, Ripple is aggressively expanding its financial infrastructure capabilities, including acquiring companies $1.25 billion for Hidden Road and $1 billion for G Treasury, and securing conditional approval to operate a national trust bank in the U.S. This strategy focuses on becoming a regulated institutional-grade payment provider, which allows them to offer services to traditional financial institutions that are hesitant to directly adopt the volatile XRP asset for settlement. So I think what Ripple is doing is saying, hey, well, these banks, they won't adopt our digital asset. So you know what? We'll just buy up all these companies. We'll become a national bank ourselves, and then we'll offer this to customers. And we'll compete with these banks and take their business if they don't want to adopt the technology. And that's all part of Ripple's plan. And another thing I want to talk about, guys. So if you do not understand cryptocurrency, probably the number one thing, if you are looking to invest into crypto and understanding, is the tokenomics of a certain coin. Okay, so a tokenomics has to do with total supply and circulating supply. That's the main idea of what tokenomics is and how that supply is managed by whatever company or whoever owns the underlying asset. Okay, so XRP features a fixed pre-mined supply of 100 billion tokens designed for high-speed, low-cost cross-border payments. It uses a deflationary mechanism where transaction fees are burned, with about 48 to 59 billion in circulation as of early 2026. Ripple Labs manages supply through a monthly escrow release of 1 billion tokens, returning unused portions to ensure market stability. Now, if you might say, hey, wow, the total supply of XRP is at 100 billion. How is this thing ever going to go up in price? There's so many of it, you know? But that doesn't tell the whole story. If you look at the circulating supply, it's actually only around 48 to 59 billion XRP, with significant amount of that actually held by Ripple and escrow. 55 billion was locked in 2017, like I said, by Ripple, with 1 billion released monthly to fund ecosystem developments, partnerships, and institutional liquidity. Okay, so what a lot of people, the FUD on XRP, right, is Ripple holds a significant amount of the XRP, which people have a problem with. And Ripple also uses a certain amount of that XRP that they sell to the open market that they use to fund the ecosystem. And people are saying, oh, they're dumping on their heads because they're selling on the open market. Now, I have a little bit differing of an opinion here. They are selling XRP, yes, but they are using that to create partnerships and institutional liquidity and create more utility for XRP, which in the long run is going to benefit and cause massive price appreciation for XRP. So in the short term, could it cause some drawdowns for the price of XRP? Sure. But if you look at the company, and if you look at Ripple, you look at Brad Garlinghouse, Monica Long, David Schwartz, all the people behind Ripple, and you see their plan, and you see that the utility that they're trying to create with XRP, you can see that this is going to be a cryptocurrency that is actually going to be utilized in the real world. It isn't just going to be some arbitrary store of value like Bitcoin. Oh, it's digital gold. We have gold. Why do we need digital gold? But what is it used for? Oh, well, it's there's only a certain amount of Bitcoin that'll ever be created, and Satoshi Nakamoto holds a very, very large portion of it, but we don't even know who this Satoshi Nakamoto is. There's no transparency. They say, oh, it doesn't matter who created Bitcoin and who holds all this. Why doesn't it matter? What if Satoshi Nakamoto decided to come on one day and sell all the Bitcoin? I mean, these people have a problem with Ripple holding a significant portion of XRP and selling it to fund the ecosystem development, creating more utility for XRP, but they don't have a problem with this person, Satoshi Nakamoto, that nobody even knows who he is. That to me is a major, major red flag. And with this Epstein stuff coming out, and that Epstein originally helped fund the original development of Bitcoin, and he also went after Ripple, and he went after XLM, Stellar Loomis, because he didn't want two horses in the same race to compete with Bitcoin. I mean, I think Bitcoin has some major issues right now. But I'm done with my rant on Bitcoin, but I just wanted to explain the tokenomics. So 100 billion total, but there's only 48 to 59 billion XRP in circulating supply. But also I want to mention something else, okay? That the circulating supply doesn't matter as much. What really matters is how much XRP is held on exchanges, because the exchanges are what set the prices for these digital assets. So the less amount of these digital assets that are on the exchange, and the faster that people buy them up on the exchanges, can create a supply shock, and that's what really sets the prices. The selling and the buying on the exchanges is what sets the prices, okay? So let's actually look at the reality of what is happening. As of early 2026, roughly 2.1 to 2.5 billion XRP tokens are held on major centralized exchanges, representing about 4 to 5% of the 61 billion circulating supply. So only 4 to 5% of the circulating supply is actually on exchanges, guys. And that is what causes the fluctuations in prices. It isn't the total number. Okay, and that's very, very important to understand if you ever want to get into investing into cryptocurrency. And this is something that the number one thing you should know before you invest in a cryptocurrency is, okay, look at the tokenomics, look at who holds the portion of the digital asset, look at how much of it is on exchanges, and then look at, well, what's the utility of this? Why would people want to hold it? What is it going to be used for in the future? How is it going to change the financial system? Those are the things I would look into. And if you look at Ripple and you look at XRP, they have the most thought out, the most rigorous, most expansive ecosystem on how it is going to be utilized in the financial system out of any other cryptocurrency that is out there. And that is not only my opinion, that is an undeniable fact. Ripple has the partnerships, Ripple has the money behind it, Ripple has the people behind it, Ripple has the trust layers set in place, and they've always only released 1 billion tokens every single month, and they always lock back up. I think I want to say 600 million of it they lock back up every single month, and they use it to fund their ecosystem to build out utility for XRP. Okay, so those are the things you want to look for when you're investing into a cryptocurrency. And I'm saying I personally like XRP. That doesn't mean you have to, but I would simply say that you should do your research when it comes to this. Okay, now you might be asking, okay, when is there going to be a supply shock? When are we going to get this next run on XRP? Okay, so I don't know if you guys know, but we just recently in late 2025, the first XRP spot ETFs went live. Okay, so a spot ETF is an ETF offered, and for every XRP that is bought, it has to be also backed by the underlying asset. So every time a company buys one, they have to back it 1-to-1. Okay, so these XRP spot ETFs are going to be taking up a bunch of the supply, and eventually it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. This will cause a supply shock on XRP, and it will cause the price to go up. Well, why hasn't it happened? Why hasn't it happened yet? Okay, because if we look, we have over $1 billion in assets under management for the XRP spot ETFs, and we have almost 800 million, almost $1 billion XRP locked up in spot ETFs. And you're like, well, if there's only 2.1 to 2.5 billion XRP tokens on exchanges, then why hasn't this number caused a supply shock? Well, the answer is simple. Because not only is there some XRP held on the exchanges, but there are also things called dark pools and OTC markets that these institutions buy from for their spot ETF products. Okay, so recent analysis suggests that institutional demand has significantly reduced the available supply of XRP in OTC markets and dark pools, with estimates placing the remaining amount in these venues at approximately 1 to 2 billion XRP as late November of 2025. Okay, so these companies, and the big ones are Bitwise, Franklin Templeton, Canary Capital, Grayscale. These offer these ETFs to mostly institutional investors. They're the ones that are mostly responsible for this amount of numbers. Now, we don't know what exactly who is buying up these spot XRP ETF products, but we can see the numbers, and we can see 800 million is locked up. Now, of this 800 million that's locked up, they are buying them from OTC and dark pools. Now, we don't know the exact number held on OTC and dark pools, but they approximate 1 to 2 billion. Well, when that number runs out on OTC and dark pools, guess where they have to buy from? They will have to buy from the exchanges. Okay? And once they buy from the exchanges, that is when we're going to get the supply shock. Now, I just wanted to explain that because all this stuff is very important to know if you ever look into investing into a cryptocurrency. And XRP is not the only cryptocurrency full disclosure, that has these spot ETF products. Bitcoin was the first, followed by Ethereum, Solana, and HBAR also have them. I believe Litecoin and maybe Dogecoin or a couple others have these. Now, this is the big one, guys. This is probably the biggest thing that is going to lead to price appreciation for XRP, and that is the Clarity Act. Because what I was talking about earlier, a lot of these banking institutions have not yet adopted XRP for cross-border settlements, and they haven't adopted for they haven't held them on their balance sheets, digital assets on their balance sheets, because of lack of clarity, lack of regulation, fear of the SEC suing them, legal issues, the whole 9 yards. Okay, based on Polymarket, which Polymarket isn't extremely accurate usually, because people are actually putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to this. The Clarity Act signed into law in 2026 is sitting at 70% right now. And I am willing to say, guys, that we have seen the bear market that we've been in for the past year, mostly because we have not gotten this Clarity Act signed into law. And when I say we were in a bear market, I believe we were in a bear market, but we did get price appreciation on a lot of these digital assets in anticipation of getting the Clarity Act signed into law in 2025. And when it didn't happen, that was just pure speculation. We weren't even really in, like, the macro environment wasn't, the macro was not indicative of a bull run. It was just, there was so much speculation and anticipation that we were going to get the Clarity Act signed into law into 2025 based on what Trump was promising, that we did get a run up on a lot of these digital assets, and we've seen a lot of all-time highs with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP. But when that didn't happen, and when we had a massive liquidation event on October 10th, it just caused a cascading effect that has led us into a further bear market. But this could change everything right here, guys. If the Clarity Act is signed into law, we will see mass institutional adoption, massive amounts of these digital assets being scooped up, put on balance sheets, and actually utilized. And this will make all the difference in the world. Now, how will these institutions adopt these things once the Clarity Act is signed into law? Following the expected regulatory clarity in 2026, companies are expected to transition from passive observation to active compliant holding and usage of XRP. So, like I said, right now they're just on the sidelines. They're observing. They want to use this technology, guys. But when you don't have regulation and you don't have clarity behind it, you can't really use it. It's just like the Telecom Act back in the late 90s. Like, a lot of people wanted to utilize these internet products, and a lot of these internet stocks seen massive price appreciation after the Telecom Act was signed into law, and they could start using the internet, right? Because it wasn't regulated before. And we see how the internet has evolved over time. Okay, so now institution adoption is likely to take several forms, focusing on utility, liquidity, and treasury management. Here are the primary ways companies will hold XRP. Direct treasury holdings, corporate reserves. As the legal gray zone vanishes, right? Like I said, it's a legality. That it's the why these big institutions are not going to get involved with this. Their lawyers are like, no way, we can't have this on our balance sheet. There's not clarity around it. We don't want to get sued. We don't want the SEC coming after us. But as the legal gray zone vanishes, companies, particularly in the financial, tech, and fintech sectors, may add XRP to their balance sheet as a reserve asset. What is that going to cause, guys? Supply shock. These are going to be taken off OTC dark pools, and then eventually they'll take them off the exchanges, which is going to cause what, guys? Supply shock, which will cause what? The price to go higher. Operational capital. Companies using Ripple's on-demand liquidity will hold XRP to facilitate real-time cross-border payments, reducing reliance on corresponding banking. Oh. So they're also going to use it for on-demand liquidity, which is kind of what XRP was designed and made for, right? Institutional custody and investment products. Regulated custodians. Companies will utilize secure institutional-grade custodians to hold XRP, ensuring compliance. For instance, or repealed SAB 121. XRP ETFs and trusts, and we already talked about the XRP ETFs. This will just cause more demand for these XRP ETF spot products, guys, and more companies will dive on in. And guess what? If we get an ETF from the likes of BlackRock or Fidelity, watch out. And that might be why the Clarity Act not being signed into law, that might just be why BlackRock hasn't decided to go in head first. I mean, we know that they got Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF products, but just wait until we had seen an XRP ETF from BlackRock. Usage with XRP ecosystem. Okay. So we have RLUSD collateral, tokenized asset management. They'll likely hold native XRP to cover transaction fees and liquidity needs. Yeah, all this. And but basically what I'm trying to get at, guys, is when the Clarity Act is signed into law, it's just not going to be one. It's not just going to be two. There's going to be tons and tons and tons of reasons why institutions would want to get their hands on these digital assets, whether it's for holding it on their balance sheet, for price appreciation, whether they want to actually utilize it, whether they use it for collateral, on-demand liquidity. I mean, the list goes on and on. I say all this to say, guys, you look at the price right now of XRP, and we're at what, $1? What are we at? Okay, we're at $1.40 right now, and we've been in. If you look at the year, it's just been brutal. It's been absolutely brutal. I mean, we were all the way up to what were we here? $3.55 at all-time high, and now we were all the way down 50%. Just a massive hemorrhage, massive bleeding. And if you sold down 50%, lost 50% of value that you had invested, that is rough. That is completely rough. Now, me personally, this isn't financial advice. I would absolutely refuse to sell at a loss. And in fact, this is when you should be buying, guys. Not financial advice, but when the crypto fear and greed index is right here, when you look at the year price chart and you're right here, this is not where you want to buy. And I started buying, let's see here, when I started buying, what's the date here? I was before there. Anyways, I started buying before this pump. I bought all the way into this pump, guys. I bought all the way in this because I thought we were going to, skyrocket, and that's the mistake I made. But that isn't to say that you shouldn't invest in crypto. I mean, you can see that the writing is on the wall. You can see that this is going to be used in the new financial system. Anybody can see this. And if you miss this, in my opinion, you are going to miss the biggest transfer of wealth in possibly our generation, if not generations to come. This is going to be a massive transfer of wealth once the cryptocurrency market is actually utilized, and you better be invested in the right cryptocurrencies that are actually going to be utilized, that are going to be compliant with regulation. And if you are, it is of my humble opinion that you are going to make generational wealth, and you are going to be able to possibly retire your entire bloodline. And that is my opinion, guys. And I hope you enjoyed this first episode of this brand new series. If you did, please leave a like. And if you want to see more of this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel and join the pack today. I will see you guys in the next one.